Beethoven's fourth concerto. The orchestra, the McGill Chamber Orchestra. Alexander Brott, conductor. The pianist is Misha Dichter. His piano is a Steinway. It was built by Steinway & Sons in their New York factory. Steinway has been building pianos for 135 years and has long been considered the Cadillac of the industry. It builds only 6,000 pianos a year, a Lilliputian quantity compared to Yamaha, but it controls about 10% of the most lucrative part of the market, grand pianos, 6 feet and over. Misha Dichter has had a lifelong love affair with Steinway. Why do you love them?
A well-regulated Steinway can do everything I want to do and more. It's the feeling I have that I see more than just a box sitting there that will respond with a certain number of mechanical devices to what my fingers are doing. It seems to have possibilities beyond what I could imagine. On very few and wonderfully rare occasions, I have felt that I'm sitting there and the sound is coming out and I'm having nothing to do with it. That may have happened in the past 5 years twice. But I live for those moments and I want to have a few more of those before it's all over.
Judging a piano is always subjective. Last year, when Mr. Watts played in New York City, Donald Hanahan, music critic for the New York Times, praised Mr. Watts, but panned the Yamaha. He wrote that the performance was weakened by the piano, which frequently did not hold its own against the orchestra in fortissimo passages. Larry Fine is author of A Consumer's Guide on Pianos. He's played both companies' concert grands. We asked him for his opinion.
There was a certain richness in the sound, in the harmonic content of the sound, that was missing from the Yamaha. And that became even more obvious when I went to Steinway Hall and played the Steinways. Now, for certain kinds of music, the Yamaha may actually be better than the Steinway. One of the characteristics of the Yamaha sound is that the attack sound, the initial ping of the note, is more pronounced in the Yamaha than it is in the Steinway, generally speaking. And certain kinds of music demand a very articulated sound. Some kinds of jazz, some kinds of Baroque music. The Steinway has a more singing tone without a pronounced attack. And I think is better for the romantic repertoire.
Music critics may argue nuances of tone and repertoire, but the real story here has more to do with the bottom line than any melodic line. The U.S. market in new pianos, estimated at roughly $500 million, has been steadily shrinking in recent years and competition increasing. Yamaha, which was once content to concentrate on selling moderately priced pianos, has now gone upscale. And, as if to emphasize that point, Yamaha opened its new showroom in New York City just a few doors down from Carnegie Hall, and right across the street from Steinway. Their pianos may look the same, but the two companies are as different as Mozart and Manilow. On the south side of 57th Street is Yamaha, the challenger, a modern research-oriented company that built its first concert grand piano just 20 years ago. Its showroom displays traditional instruments alongside the latest in digital high-tech, including this tone-generating HX1 Electone. This disc clavier player piano, and this composer's workstation, capable of generating the sounds of 32 instruments at the same time. On the north side of 57th Street, the old master, Steinway and Sons. Center stage, a Steinway concert grand. Steinway is a company that reveres tradition and draws its inspiration from the past. Its showroom ceiling is covered with frescoes. The walls are decorated with remembrances of great Steinway artists. Anton Rubinstein, Paderewski, and Rachmaninoff. To compete with the old master, Yamaha decided to do exactly what Steinway did, start a concert in artist service. It even went Steinway one better, promising to provide a company technician at every concert. Steinway artists usually have to take their chances with local technicians supplied by dealers. The general manager of Yamaha Music Corporation's piano division is Terry Lewis.
We have just recently entered the classical piano area, and that requires a whole different set of services, and specifically concert grand pianos, 9 feet long. And we are still in the process of placing these instruments around the United States. So we have not been terribly aggressive about recruiting these artists to play our pianos along classical lines, simply because we're not in a position to support a large body of classical artists at this time. Later this year, we will be.
At the moment, Yamaha has only 2 classical artists in the program. Michael Tilson Thomas, pianist and conductor of the London Symphony, and André Watts. It's common practice in many entertainment fields to recruit stars by offering them endorsement fees. I asked Mr. Watts whether Yamaha did the same. Is there any money involved?
No. Yes, I've heard an awful lot about that. I'm never quite sure, really, what my reaction to that is. On the one hand, of course, superficially, I find it somehow offensive. I somehow always thought that I had a pretty good career and made a lot of money, and I wouldn't need to go and play another piano. Also, the idea of, if you play a lot of concerts, I'm not so sure, well, I don't know, everyone's different, but I can't quite conceive of enough money making it worthwhile to play an instrument that you didn't really like.
For a concert artist, it's not good enough just to have a quality piano. The piano also has to be well maintained. Watt says the major reason he switched was because he was unhappy with Steinway's service.
I sit here in my house and I practice, and I prepare a program. And I start to go on the road, and the instruments I encounter start taking away, start stealing parts of what I've built up, what I've developed, because this doesn't work, that doesn't work, and you can't get this fixed. If you call back to New York, you may find out that it's, well, very cordially, but nevertheless, that's an independent dealer. We don't have any control over that person. I'm sorry, you know. After a while, if there's something better, I don't see why not.
Jack Birmingham is co-owner of Steinway and Sons. He bought the company from CBS in 1985. He admits Steinway has had service problems, but says it's working to correct them.
Since we bought the company, it's been a goal of ours to try to establish training for people, and we do have training back here in the hall for concert technicians, and to try to raise generally the level of concert technicians in the country who are working on our pianos, because we want them to represent us well.
The battle between Steinway and Yamaha really began to heat up last fall, when Steinway wrote dealers discouraging them from providing Yamahas for concerts. It even revoked one dealer's franchise. He sued, and the case is now in court, with Yamaha picking up $50,000 of the dealer's expenses. The winner of that skirmish is yet to be decided. Yamaha won the competition for André Watts, but the company will have a tough fight to expand its roster. According to Steinway, more than 90% of solo artists performing with major orchestras prefer Steinway. So why is Yamaha going to all this effort?
We feel that the Concert and Artist program is an excellent vehicle for helping people recognize that indeed Yamaha stands apart on a quality level from other manufacturers.
Those other manufacturers include aggressive new competitors like Samick and Youngchang, two Korean companies that are underselling everyone else. In less than 10 years, the Koreans have come out of nowhere to gobble up about a quarter of U.S. piano sales. They are the ones that Yamaha is really after.
The way for Yamaha to stay in the piano market is to upgrade its image so that people will be willing to pay more money for a Yamaha than for a Korean piano. Most people, when they go to buy a piano, they have this idea that Japanese and Korean pianos are all the same. And that's what Yamaha wants to change.
The piano market has undergone a lot of changes in recent years. But through them all, the Steinway sound, that rich combination of mellifluous tone and power, has remained the standard by which all others are measured. Whether the concert world is willing to accept another piano is a question the artists and their audiences will ultimately decide.
After our report was completed, Mr. Watts was again reviewed by the New York Times. This time, the reviewer praised the sound of the Yamaha piano.